Beyond the Ring, a podcast that covers all things in the stock show industry from the informative to the insane, starring Ryan Rash.
Please don't ask me nothing dumb in this heat because I'm going to get real mad.
And Dale Hummel.
If you want to make small changes, change what you do. If you want to make big changes, change what you see.
Now on with the show.
Welcome to Beyond the Ring. This is Dale Hummel, along with co-star Ryan Rash.
Hello, hello, hello.
Ryan, how are you today?
Oh, I'm lovely. Wonderful.
At the Steer Jock Junior Nationals.
It's called the Main Key Junior Nationals, not the Steer Jockey Junior Nationals, sir.
Got it. I'm not doing as well. As I mentioned, I have a temporary health issue.
Yeah.
Very temporary, I'm hoping, but it's been a couple weeks now and it's not getting any better. Ryan, when I sneeze, it's like I want to scream. Can't sleep on my side. Can't carry a water bucket.
If you would not play on motocross bikes, then you wouldn't have this problem.
I'm not arguing that. I don't know that many of our listeners have ever gone to the Badlands in Attica, Indiana. Very fun. Deep sand, motocross track. And I made the mistake of trying to keep up with my son, Dylan. This terrible idea. Rubber
Dylan
arms.
always gets you in trouble.
He does. I was doing great until I wasn't.
Dylan, I mean, you anytime you go anywhere with Dylan, it ends badly. So maybe you should limit your quality time with your eldest child outside of the Hummel livestock compound. That would be my...
That is a possibility.
That would be my suggestion.
There is a light at the end of the tunnel. We have one sale left, Ryan, in the sale season of June. That is flush season, sale season, all seasons, and I will be back to more normal life in July.
No, you're not, because you're going on vacation for a month.
Not a month, but I believe my wife does have a week-long vacation somewhere in Europe.
You told me you would not be home the entire month of July.
Well, that is if Chase and I go to the exotic animal sale and maybe go back out to some fossil digs, things like that. But we only have one thing scheduled, or two. July 10th, Macon, Missouri. Not far from where you're at, Ryan. Just, I think, head north a little bit for the exotic animal sale. Chase and I say we're taking the truck and trailer. My wife says we are not. I think we'll win.
Can either one of you drive a truck and trailer?
I'm capable. Chase is getting much better at it as well.
Chase can't drive his car.
I know, but he is allowed to drive the truck and trailer. But I'm not.
That makes total sense. This is about as good as you going on a motocross bike. Anyway,
I agree. How's Jamal Bowman, our AOC rapping friend?
Well, he did not win.
He did not win. And you want me to tell you something about that? I am very happy.
Well, I get that you're happy, but it's not like the other guy's going to be that much better.
No, but I think it's just proving a point that one of the squad, this is the first of the squad to leave, and I hope it becomes a pattern. And
he wasn't on the squad. The squad are all women.
No, he was the only male squad member is what they would refer him to. The lesser, probably in the rankings, but he was considered part of the squad. I heard pundits say that. I did. I heard him. And he lost by a significant amount, like 18, 17% or something. I mean, he got beat. Did you? I'm sure you did. You watched him out there screaming and jumping and flexing.
I saw all of that. Yes.
Did you find that attractive?
No, did not. Nope.
Amazing. Just amazing. What's going on? We are just for, I think maybe for reference this week, we are recording on a Wednesday, which is a little later in the week than usual, but there's a pretty big event tomorrow that we're going to have to only make predictions on, and then everybody can hear how wrong we are Friday morning.
What?
The debate.
Oh, well, yeah, but that's not happened yet.
Tomorrow. What I'm saying is we're going to have to only predict what's going to happen, and then by the time this airs, it will have happened.
Sir, I have to fact check you. I'm sorry. I just looked up the squad. It is 5 women.
I believe they consider him one.
No, it's Cortez, Alexandra Cortez. It's actually 4 women. Sorry. Omar, Presley, and Talib.
See, Omar and AOC are the only ones I really even would know their names, I guess. But they did. It was Fox News that said this is the first squad member to be removed. Now
now I'm looking up something else that says you're right. So I
think they're wanting to make him a squad member so my wishes can come true.
Maybe he was a late addition. I don't think he was in the.
You do know he is. They do refer to him as a fireman or whatever he is, firefighter. He's the one that pulled the fire alarm.
Oh, him.
Yeah, wasn't that? Now, how on earth? The only way he could have justified pulling the fire alarm during a vote in Congress is he didn't think he'd get caught. How dumb would you have to be to think you would not be on camera?
Well,
that man should not only not be reelected. I have other ideas on what should happen to him.
All right, so I got to go back to the debate for a minute. First of all, Biden has 16 debate preppers.
Just 16.
16.
Plus
I don't think the man
Obama's
can
not
count.
one of those 16.
No, he's not. I don't think the man can count to 16. Secondly, I can't remember if it was 8 or 10, but a high number of these people are over the age of 75.
They're more on his schedule.
So, and also 2 nights ago, yesterday was day 5 of the Biden debate prep. So today would be day 6. 2 nights ago, they had lasagna for dinner. Did you know that?
I was unaware completely. Yeah. I would say they'd pull carbs from him so he doesn't get tired.
And they have talked about how many golf carts it's required to handle all of these. Why is the White House giving every stupid detail about Biden's debate prep? I do not know.
And this is at Camp David, I believe?
Yes, it is.
So they can house all of the
It's in an airport. The debate is being staged in an airplane hangar. I mean, I just.
So what's the? You mean the real debate?
No,
his simulated debate.
Yes, his simulated debate. Yes.
I can only imagine what's going on. Wouldn't you love to just see exactly what's going on there?
No, I wouldn't, because I would probably do bad things to them all.
I mean, isn't it shocking to you that he has that many people that are around him that just can continue to push this false narrative that he's okay?
Okay, well, see, here's my problem. I don't believe everybody that's on the TV. I believe very few people on the TV. But, Martha McCowan on Fox, I want to believe her. And she truly, she did this whole segment on the 5 yesterday because there's been stories, and like I've said, I think he's going to have a terrible debate and they're going to pull him. And she said, he is the nominee. It is what it is. This is all false narrative. I don't get it.
I don't either. What is your prediction? I want to hear it now because you'll be on.
My prediction is he is going to do terrible. There's going to be something significant happen, and they're going to remove him. I've said this before. And I think Hillary, you keep saying it's Michelle or Gavin or whatever. Hillary is all up in the news all over again.
The last 2 weeks, you're absolutely correct.
I think they're going to try the old girl.
And she will not give up ever.
Oh, no, shoot. No, if she thinks there's a chance in hell, she will run again. But I mean, I think she would pull Biden's plug if she thought she would get the nomination. She would literally have him suicided.
I think she would out him so fast.
I mean, she would have him suicided. I am telling you, it is I went for a long time saying he'd never be the nominee. Then I was like, I don't know. Now I'm back. I don't think it's possible, even though all the few people that I trust on the news are saying he is the nominee.
I'm with you. I don't know how it's possible.
I like Greg Gutfeld and I like Jesse Waters, but I don't trust them, and I think they're a little too far your way for me. And they're all like, oh no, he's getting pulled. But the people that I think make sense.
I would like to take issue with that. I believe both of those individuals make sense.
Right. The people that I think make sense, they all believe he's the nominee. So I don't know. I'm very concerned. I'm very scared. But anyway, I think he's getting pulled. And I believe, it is my personal belief, that the reason that Gavin will not be it is he is smart enough or sociopathical enough to think that them switching horses in the last, 300 yards of the race may become problematic, and he's just going to bide his time and run the next time. I mean, he's got lots of years. He's very young.
I believe that to be very insightful and accurate.
I just don't think that he's like, I think he has said, no, I don't have faith in this, so I'm not doing it. So hence, here's Hillary.
No, and Hillary, I mean, what are they? And I do not pay enough attention when Hillary's name comes up, but I keep hearing or maybe it's social media. Well, I don't, for those of you out there, I no longer have social media.
No, he does. He's just blocked. And
I'm locked out of my accounts I have no idea what reason, but I'm sure it was something conservative based would be my assumption.
Maybe they just don't like you.
Maybe. So going back to Hillary, I hear the rumbling about replace camel toe with Hillary or I don't know what they're saying or how they're planning to do something like that, but that's all that I'm hearing right now. And just the fact that Hillary's name is starting to pop back up,
emerge.
Yeah, you're dead on track, Ryan. You nailed this one.
I don't know, but this is going to be. I mean, dude, I don't think there's. And what I don't, and I'm going too long on this. What I don't understand is if I was the White House, I would be lowering expectations so much that if the man actually was able to stand at the podium for 90 minutes, then that would be considered a win. That's what I would be doing. That's what I would be doing.
Yes, I would agree. I think they're already that low in the public perception. I don't think
Instead, 16 debate preppers and all this other stuff, and they're talking about how he's preparing for both sides of Donald Trump, the new more, steady and whatever, or the crazy lunatic one from the last time and all this stuff. Like, I would just be sitting there going, well, we're going to go out there and he's going to talk to the American people and we hope he stands up for 90 minutes. That's what I would be saying.
I'm absolutely with you completely. I have a lot of current events yet.
Okay, keep going.
Should you acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, I picked up a tell on Trump?
A what?
A tell.
Oh, go right ahead. Yeah, because I think you were right. I hope you're right.
So I'm watching Fox News yesterday, Ryan. I don't know. I was pretty excited. I texted Ryan.
No, it wasn't yesterday. It was 2 days ago.
A couple days ago. Okay, so I'm watching. He's at some food truck. I don't remember, Philly cheesesteak or somewhere where he's out in the public and conversing with the public. And he asked them, who do you think would be a good vice presidential running mate? I think the first one says Tim Scott. And he says,
J.D. Vance was the first
J.D. Vance, yes, sorry. And he responded as, yeah, that's a good idea. I believe the second one was Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Sarah
And
Huckabee Sanders.
And here's the response that I saw from him. It looked like it caught him a little off guard. And he said he had them repeat it, even though I'm positive he heard the name. And I'm predicting this was almost instinctive that we're trying to buy time to think of something to say. You have that person repeat the question. And as soon as I repeated, I think it was like an O, and then he turned his head. He didn't hardly even give a response. And it is my opinion. He is so excited. He made it clear he's the only one that knows. Not even the future vice president knows. Yeah, nobody around him knows. Yeah, nobody knows except him. He's very proud of that fact that he is going to make the decision. He is going to appoint the best, the greatest vice president of all time, and is so excited and proud of such. He does not want the pundits to have predicted who it is. I think he's a little disappointed that he heard that name come in by my observation of his reaction. And keep this in mind, subconsciously, I'm sure I'm wanting this to happen because I think she'd be perfect. But I thought something was there.
See, I read the same things you did. I didn't see it, but when you showed it to me, I agree. He was completely caught off guard. I think that is the thing. He wanted this to be something that was completely, just him. And now maybe somebody's caught on because there's been a few things in the news, but not many. A few, but not many.
She's never made those lists, the official pundits list.
Yeah. But I hope it's her. I think it would be great. I have said, no one will remember this, but I said back in the 2020 election that he needed to dump Pence and pick a woman. That's what he needed to do. And he didn't. But everybody else that gets paid for their opinions on TV swear up and down that it has to be a person of color. I think a woman would be better for him than a person of color, but I am perfect. I would love for it to be Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I would love for it to be Tim Scott. Anybody else I'm going to be okay with as long as it's not an old white person.
But what if that old white person is qualified?
I can't do an old white person.
What if they are qualified?
I'm not saying Burgum is not qualified. He cannot be.
I'm not sure. And this is going to sound.
He cannot be the person.
Out of character for me. I'm not sure that he is, but I don't know that he isn't. But you're right. That is not a good image.
And I do not like being this way. I do not believe in this thinking. I think whoever is the most qualified should be whatever. I have been over this a million times in different things. But in this instance, right now, like it can't be an old white person. It just can't.
No, and I am
all white male. All white male.
I think the most qualified person should have the job, but I'm looking at the end goal, and we have to get elected, or it doesn't matter.
Right. It absolutely doesn't matter.
So I am hoping for Sarah. I am great with Tim Scott, and to me, those are the two it's down to. And I could be way off base. Obviously, throwing a complete wild card with Sarah in there when the pundits are not. But I think Trump likes that. I think he loves it, feeds off of it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm too emotionally attached that this is what I want to happen. So I'm seeing what I would like to happen. Other relevant news, Ryan.
I don't know.
There'll be a lot of news after the debate, and we won't. You will not hear from us for a full another week about that. I have a text actually came in that dinged here a little bit ago from a good friend of mine. He shared a link to me. Cows, sheep, and pigs face world's first carbon tax in Denmark because they're releasing gas.
Oh my!
I'm not a fan of Denmark.
Yeah, don't go there. Tell Holly y'all aren't going there.
No, we will not. Isn't that? I mean, that is way out there. And guess what? This insanity is it's gonna continue. Absolutely crazy. Well, with that, Ryan, I think we probably went a little long on current events. I'm excited for the debate from the standpoint that I'm very hopeful that it goes well for the conservative side and not so much for the liberal side. I am nervous about it. And by the time this episode drops, everybody will know exactly what happened. I hope
it will all be in the history books. But and then I'm gonna move on. So the one, if you watched The Five yesterday, which most people don't, there's this very leftist, liberal African American man that they had on The Five yesterday, and I can't think of his damn name because I mentally block it. And he said that the debate tomorrow will decide who is president.
I'm not in disagreement with that. I feel that much. My nerves are there. The pressure. I feel the pressure, and I have zero control over anything that happens. And I feel it. That's not, anxiety is building. I don't know. Let's go on to something that's maybe not quite so political. And that would be BTRJLA news.
Oh, okay. Let me see here. Top 10.
It would be appropriate to go to cattle since the junior nationals and things like that.
Well, sorry. I can do that. Sorry. I can do that.
And you do have the swine off breeds, I think, going on right now as well.
Well, that's what I had pulled up, but you wanted cattle.
No, you can do whatever you like.
Oh my God. I am so tired. Okay. Hog Senior. First place, Sadie Vino of California. Second place, Riley Went of Illinois. Look, Dale, you were trying to deprive an Illinois person.
This may be the first one I've heard in 2024.
Jenna Freitas of California is third, followed by Landon Thomas of Utah. In fifth is Carson Ostrander of Oregon, followed by another Oregonian, Jesselyn Majory. Next is Madison Full of Oregon. Lord, that's 3 Oregons. 8th is Ryder Lloyd of Utah. 9th is Brody Castro of Oregon. And
Ryder.
10th is,
that little showmanship kid?
No, this is Hogs. And it's
Got it.
Yep. 9th is Brody Castro of Oregon. And 10th is Caitlin Kirby of Texas. Lots of organ.
It is. Congratulations. Huge, huge accomplishment.
There you go.
And what about a sponsor?
We don't have sponsors.
You can
They
have
don't
one.
like us
I
anymore.
will allow one.
Well, I would like to have them, but nobody wants to give money because we're in a recession. So,
But it's going to change in the fall.
yeah, hopefully.
It will. No, we have to think positive.
Yeah.
It will change. Well, we are in the heat of junior nationals across species. We're also in the heat of the summer. There is one single management tool that can be implemented that is low cost and simple with the largest returns. The goal is to get your animals to drink as much while on the road as they do at home. Chlorinated water may inhibit this from happening. ShowFresh H2O has zero downside with huge upside. It will neutralize the negative impact of animals not wanting to drink chlorinated water. Please give ShowFresh H2O a try. You can purchase this at your local farm store, Show Supply Trailer, or at swampfox.com. Thank you for your continued support of this podcast. It is appreciated. Today's title. I'm surprised we haven't hit this a long time ago, Ryan. How many? I don't even know what episode we're on. 200 and something. And we didn't talk about this yet.
No.
Barn blind.
Yes.
Are you barn blind?
I am not.
Lies, fake news, and lies.
No, I'm not. I'm actually the other way. I don't know what I don't know what they call that, but I'm
everything's junk. Let's ship them all.
Yeah, that's where I am. Yeah, I don't know what they call that or whatever, but yeah, I'm completely opposite the total. And I think we talk about how everything is a product of genetics and environment. So we all know that I was raised by a bunch of steer jockeys and two crazy people. Well, John Ben wasn't crazy, but Cherie was crazy. But John Ben was
crazy.
Oh no, she's still
okay.
Like
just
mental hospital crazy now. But
clarifying.
But like John Ben was always just very confident about everything. Like in business, whatever. Like we're gonna win. It's gonna work. Whatever. He never had any whatever. Well, every steer jockey, my mother everybody else's stuff was shit, and mine was the only one was good. So I was the only one. I think that's why, because everybody else was like, we are supreme. We are whatever. I was like, they're all terrible. We're going to lose. I never said we were going to lose, but like, I was the only one that like, we would have, and I'm saying too much, but like, we would have 30 steers on feed, and
you didn't have 30.
5 of them would be bucked over, and
you did not have 30.
Oh yeah, we did. And 5 of them would be bucked over, and they'd be like, "Oh, well, this one's still great." I'm like, "He's a crippled piece of shit." I mean, so yeah, I am definitely.
But if we get his knee to come back in him just enough, maybe that'll work.
So I am definitely the opposite way, but I think it is just because. But like with all my friends or whatever, when they're hard on their stuff, I'm like, that one. I mean, I don't tell them if it's terrible, but like if it is a good animal and they're being extra hard on it, then I'm positive. But on my own stuff, yeah, no, I'm.
See, so I don't know that there's a term for that, and this is real, and I believe that you're what you're sharing is absolutely accurate, and I would have to tell you from a breeder perspective, there are days I'm thinking we can't raise one to save our ass, and I'm out there looking at them, and you're seeing them every day, and you're picking apart every little problem. And it becomes an issue.
We need to come up with
we do
for that, but
because it does go both ways. We always think about just the barn blind side of it, but it does go the other way. And how many of you out there will walk out in that show barn a month or two after purchasing? Maybe nominations are already closed, and you just think, God, I want to ship all these. It happens.
But back to the barn blind topic, I do want to say at the beginning that we're going to talk about this in 2 different ways. The typical barn blind that we all know, but then Dale brought up a very good point a couple of weeks ago about being barn blind in a totally different way that I think is actually more meaningful and impactful than the typical barn blindness. But anyhow, but typical barn blind to me and to anybody else that I have talked to is like, first off, you don't admit the flaws in your animal, and secondly, when you're out there in the ring, all you do is pick apart every other animal out there, and yours is easily the best one. And it doesn't matter what the truth is. It's just yours is
and
the
it's
best.
that simple.
All the rest are shit.
That simple.
And I'm telling you, I know people, and I mean, I know them so well, and they are so intelligent and so good at this and so crazy smart, and then yet they have this problem. Like, it just blows me away. It really does.
So go to the root of the problem. I have a prediction why this happens. Let's go a little bit deeper. We know.
I have no clue. I mean, I told you why. I had a bunch of steer jockeys on testosterone and steroids, and my mother was nuts. But I get why they thought so. But I do the uber intelligent people that I respect so much, and then we're sitting there watching an animal they sold or their kid show or whatever, and they can't see that there is any other outcome than them winning and everybody else's animal subpar. I have no answer for that, sir.
So let me, and I can only justify some of it, or try to not justify, but rather explain. And I thought about this, and sometimes I'll jump on here and I don't think about the topic a lot. Sometimes we decide on this topic when we talked about it a while ago, decided pretty much this morning. I believe you texted me what is the topic. So that came to mind quickly. So in this situation, the exactly what you're talking about, Ryan, you have a hard time believing how this can happen, and you're kind of the opposite. So it's hard for you to understand, obviously, and you've made that very clear, and I get it, and I see it exactly as you're stating that. I think the way the human brain functions, let's take it from a parent perspective. When your kids are involved, you could take this to any sporting event that your kid out on that court is doing everything right and all their teammates are doing things wrong, or the other team. You can take it from a standpoint of think about the mental and emotional attachment to your kids and possibly that show animal. When you're putting that much time, that much effort, the sweat and tears that go into getting one to the level that some want to get to on the national stage, you become very emotionally attached to that animal. I'm not saying like you care for the animal or love the animal or whatever from that standpoint, but the emotional attachment and the hormones that are coming into play, that, wow, you've done all of this with it. This animal, I want this animal to succeed so bad, that all of a sudden the way our brain works and the different hormones that are involved and in how we think and how we deal with things, I believe there's truly an override mechanism, because you're talking, Ryan, about people that you consider to be very, very intelligent, and this makes no sense. I believe, think about, I'm going to go way too deep. People already think I'm crazy. I'm going to go further. Think about an elephant when they're in musth. They're basically in super hormones, extra testosterone. They don't think, they destroy everything. They do a lot of things. Think about how, and I'm taking it from a sexual hormone perspective in terms of animals in the wild, when they're trying to breed, they'll risk their life to do it. Just as an example, and I'm going way out there, but hormones control our brain in ways that we don't have control over. And in that situation, because we are so attached, because it may be our children, even if it's not our children, it's one that you raised, that you've put your life's work into. All of a sudden, you have things out of your control that may be blocking what I would call common sense and logical thought. And I truly believe this is a thing. So that helps explain some of it on why we are that way. And it's not just with show livestock. It's our kids in sports. It's whatever business that we may be in, that we're putting our heart and soul into it, and we're doing it right and everybody else is doing it wrong. I see it across everything, across all spectrums. And I think it really applies to this extremely, extremely well. And there's some situations where on another extreme or the other end of it, and this isn't the only, but somebody goes out and spends a lot of money on an animal. They maybe don't have the experience or knowledge on how to truly evaluate animals from a skeletal standpoint or whatever it may be. But because they spend a lot and they've got that one home in their barn, they assume it has to be better than everything else. Only from the standpoint that they just don't know. They don't have the experience to evaluate what's actually in front of them. Your thoughts. That was out there.
I mean, I get that.
So why did Cherie think that your animals were the best?
Well, because she had no concept of judging animals, and she's crazy.
And she
I told you that.
And I'm not throwing you under the bus, but she probably paid quite a bit for them.
Oh, and they were the most expensive, and we had the most help, and all these other things. But
and then throw in, how bad did she want you and your brother to succeed? Showing.
She insanely, yeah. I mean, I get what you're saying.
She had it coming from every single direction, in my opinion. Every direction.
Oh no, yes, no. She is the case study for it. I
hope she doesn't listen to this. I really love your mother.
She doesn't even know there is a podcast. Anyway, next. Moving on. I understand, and I get everything that you say is correct. Okay, I want to state that everything you say is correct. My deal is like, I wish at times that you could actually see into a person's head or heart, or actually be inside themselves, because I want to know if deep down, even though that's what they're saying, that's what they're portraying, that's whatever, all this other stuff, deep down within them, do they really think that, or do they, you know what, that one standing out there, that one's pretty good, and if that one beat me, I wouldn't be happy, but I could understand it.
And there are plenty of people that look at it that way, but there are plenty that don't. And those that don't, Ryan, I truly believe there's a chemical override that they're seeing what they're telling you.
Because I'm telling you, I'll be very honest, I'm the other way. Like I talked about, I find every flaw, everything, and then I sit there and I look at all the other animals in the ring, and I think, well, this one is good here, and this one, if you wanted to talk it this way, you could do this. But then when it gets down to the bitter end, I'm sitting there most times saying, you know what? Mine is every bit as justifiable as anybody else's out here. And so that's why I wonder if the other people, what they really deep down think is that way or not. So, but I think that the barn blindness is exactly what you said, all these things. But what gets me even more than the animal is the barn blindness and showmanship. And
oh my, there's where the kid's emotional attachment. Yeah, it's like a mother protecting young. You just aren't going to get around it.
I mean, that part, I'm going to say something, and this is going to get a lot of hate mail, probably the most hate mail.
Please do. I appreciate those things.
So I think that, and this is probably a whole nother podcast topic, but I think that we're getting off base on showmanship. So the purpose and intent of becoming a good or great showman is to give you an advantage in the ring when the county fair check or the buckle or the major show banner, all this other stuff is on the line. That's the purpose and intent of becoming a good and great showman. Now, we are so far gone on showmanship. We show a different style. We do all this differently. It's like showmanship is taking on its own cult-like status.
And oftentimes without a purpose of doing these different things.
Right. And all this other stuff. And this brings me back to the barn blind thing. These parents do not, and I will say that I think probably why we've got here to a little bit is, I would say, an overwhelming portion of showmanship judges don't feel comfortable sorting kids.
I would rather not. I'd rather not sort kids. It's
they don't feel comfortable sorting kids, and so therefore they don't talk it, because you don't want to talk. You don't want to say, "Well, this kid wins because he's better at this than she is," because then you're hurting somebody's feelings or whatever. All this other stuff. So because there is very little talk about what actually places showmanship now. These parents are just like, well, my kid was screwed and my kid's the best. And if I hear one more time, nobody works harder than little Jesse, I may lose my mind, because you don't know what other people do in their barn. So while your kid may work as hard as they possibly can, and I agree, I'm not denying that, you cannot prove that they're the hardest working one in the ring. You can't.
No, but
You cannot.
the assumption is made. And guess what else? If that parent is helping coach, or they've been to A, B, and C showmanship camps, and they've heard this judge say, this is what we do in showmanship, and in their mind, we're implementing all of those things, even though every judge that steps in the ring is going to have a different personal preference on how they want those animals shown, that parent or that person that is guiding, usually a parent, is going to be very convinced that they have gathered all of this information and giving their children all the experiences necessary that they are right. They have all the tools. They are implementing the tools, and you just beat little Jimmy.
Right. And so I think the barn blindness is even worse for me in the showmanship side of it, because
what about the barn blindness just on parents and their children? If my child is out with somebody else and they do something stupid, guess what? Oh, it was because they were with such and such. Not because my kid probably did something stupid.
See, and this is another reason that I made the best decision of my life not to be a parent, so I don't have to deal with stuff like that. But I guess my point is on the barn blindness and showmanship. I think showmanship, the important things for me about showmanship are you are judging that kid. And I think it is important that we still emphasize that you are going to get judged as a person, as an employee, as all these things in life. And you have to be able to understand that and take that, or you're never going to be successful in life. And so when they're telling you, you were robbed, you were wronged, you were all this, eventually when that's all that kid hears, they're going to believe it.
Yes. And it propagates itself.
Right. And that's the absolute worst thing you could do. You need to say, you know what? I think you did a great job, but maybe right here, this was an issue, or maybe over when you let in here and did this, maybe that was the issue. Because again, I don't think most people tell them why they got beat or whatever else, but just tell them that you were robbed and you're the best and all this other stuff. It completely takes out everything that what has built this program to be the best that it can be, because we emphasize individual success. We want these kids to know that hard work and dedication and goal setting and all these things they learn from this will propel them to be something later in life. And when you do that, it's just ripping all of that away.
Agreed completely. Absolutely and completely. So think about this way. And again, there's a lot of different avenues that affect different people. And Ryan, you brought up, you're so critical of all your animals. I am going to throw myself under the bus a couple times today. Here's a situation when one of my children would come back out of the ring, whether it's showmanship or just in a class, and I'm convinced they did nothing right. I sometimes will take the opposite. Rather than being blind that they did everything right, I'm seeing the couple things they did negative and think, well, this is a train wreck. I'll take it to an extreme. I'm the best at it. And it's a huge fault, huge. And coming back to just not going too crazy, but almost coming into two categories. I talked about the mental, the emotional attachment, the time, the effort, the sweat and tears that go into it. You're gonna be attached to that animal, and it's gonna look better than maybe it is. All of those things. Let's think you've bought a good animal or paid a lot for an animal. You've got them in the barn. You've put a lot of work into it. You've had consultant A, B, and C tell you what supplement to feed, what to do. Your kids have been in the barn working their butt off. All those things are happening. You load up to go to that first jackpot show, and you've got Mr. Ryan Rash judging. Kids are excited. Maybe they're going to get some glitter. Maybe. Probably not a jackpot, but maybe. And all of a sudden, they've got the animal that's supposed to, in their mind, when they load up that morning, they've got the animal to win the show. And they get out there in class, and Mr. Rash puts them third and maybe says, this one either has to go first or third, which Ryan doesn't say. I would
never say that.
I believe. But you know the feeling yes, you know what I'm getting at. All of a sudden, I mean, it's just, oh my God. And all that effort and so forth that went into it. It's all there. So it's hard. It's hard not to be barn blind. It's hard not to be overly critical for the few that take the opposite direction. And there's one more thing that comes into play, Ryan. And when you're with that animal every day, as a breeder, as a parent, as someone mentoring the children that are showing it, and you have the opportunity to see that animal every day. And let's say this is truly a good one. Take the barn blind out, just bring in 10 people and say, yeah, this one's really good. It may not be perfect, but it's really good in so many areas. And you get to see that in that animal each and every day because you're looking at it for hours, and it just doesn't. In the pen, it looks good. When you've got it set up, it looks good. On the wash rack, it looks good. All of those things are happening, and this is day after day. You're pretty convinced this is a good one. You take that one to the ring, and you have a judge out there that is going to get a snapshot, and only a snapshot. And you and I have talked about this. Will be a whole nother episode.
That's another topic.
Yeah. That judge has a snapshot, and if that animal is not leading properly, not cooperating, wanting to spin, whatever, there's 100 different things that could be going on in that ring that is not going to give that judge a very good snapshot to truly evaluate what you're seeing each and every day. And all of a sudden, as a breeder, as a parent, as whatever you want to call it from the outside of the ring, that's been associated with that animal and looking at that animal every single day, they truly expect the judge to see what they see, even though it's impossible if the animal's doing something that doesn't allow that to happen. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I mean, we talked about that, and I look forward to when we put that topic up here because I think it'll be a good discussion. But I guess before we move into the second half of barn blindness, and what I think is actually the more important part of it, the one thing that I'm going to suggest to everybody, exhibitor, broker, breeder, parent, ag teacher, county agent, whatever you are, if you think you suffer from this syndrome, or you've been accused of it or anything else, or just in general, I think a lot of times it shows that we only listen to what they say about our animal or our kid or, whatever. If you're standing third, listen to what the judge said about the first two and then listen to yours. And then genuinely try with an open mind to see if you can make any rational logic or sense. Now, I'm not going to tell you it's going to happen every time because there are people out there that are great judges that aren't great on the mic. There are people that are terrible judges that can fool you on the mic, etc. But I'm just saying, keep an open mind and listen. And I think one of the things that I try to do very, very well when I am describing stock is if there's let's say that the heaviest muscled animal is in third. I say, now, if you're sorting on muscle and stoutness, this one in third is probably going to win the class for you. And I am perfectly fine stating that because it's the truth. But I try to explain why I did it the way I did, but also give credit to the heaviest muscled one, the biggest bone one, the longest neck, all these other things. So at least if you are the person standing in third, you will see that I saw your animal for the things that it had, but it still ended up not in the position that you wanted it to be in the final alignment. And I don't think people understand how hard I try to do those things because I get that barn blindness is something that's out there and people need to know that you saw their animal for what it is, because whether you're barn blind or not, deep down, you know the faults in your animal and you know the strengths in your animal. And if you bring those out, I think we're all going to be better off. And I would hope that if the judges did that to a higher level than what they're doing now, then that would cure some of this barn blindness if the people on the outside of the ring were open to listening. If that made any sense whatsoever at all.
Makes a lot of sense. That really summarizes, I think, that side of it. And it's good. I think I hope this opens some minds a little bit. And get you to think about it and put things in perspective. I'm going to lead us into the other side that I couldn't come up with a name.
Thank God, because I thought you were fixing to cut us off. It was like, sir, the only part you wanted to talk about.
I'm gonna sidetrack a little bit. Ryan convinced me that if I put up there, I wanted to call it Eyes Wide Open, but I don't think that doesn't give you any direction of what the episode's going to be like, and nobody probably even listened to it. Barn Blind, I hope will get people to listen. So that's all good. So I'm going to take this and try to explain it the best I can, and Ryan will probably redirect and do a much better job of explaining what I'm trying to get across. So we become barn blind, just like we've talked about with our animals, with our children, with whatever, our business, lots of different things. Well, I think sometimes we get in our own lane in whatever we're doing, whatever we're in the trenches in, and dove into from a emotional standpoint. We're putting all of our efforts, physical, emotional, everything into something. We're in those trenches every single day. When we're in those trenches, whatever that may be, and let's relate it to showing livestock or raising livestock. Let's say in hogs, we're as a breeder working every day trying to make those breeding decisions. Let's get the best set of pigs on the ground we possibly can. Let's get them in the good manager's hands, good family's hands, all of those things. But when we're in those trenches, we're not looking outside the box much at other species. Maybe we're so focused to exceed at the highest level. It almost takes a narrower focus, no matter what species you're in. And when we are that narrow focused, and while we're talking about pigs, I'm going to start there, but I'm going to use each species as an example. And during this, I'm going to throw myself right under the bus, I promise. So over the years, we've seen a lot of trend changes in pigs, maybe more so than other species because of the generation interval, larger litter size. We can make change more quickly in the swine species. So we've seen the trends go different ways, which is great. When I was in the trenches helping families and showing pigs, I thought at that time, the pigs we were making and showing right then were better than they've ever been. And we've talked about this before, that they probably will, the trend can't change much from here because we're so good. Well, guess what? It continues to change in every species. It never doesn't change, even though we think we've made the perfect animal. It continues to change. When we are in those trenches and all of a sudden something takes us out of it, and let's step back for several years, and yeah, you're aware of hog shows and things that are going on, and it's around you, but you're not living it every single day. And you look back in from the outside, you see things from a much different perspective. And right now, in the past few years, and I'm going to use the hogs as an example, we've made these things so wide and so massive and so powerful and so big featured, all of those things, that to do so, we've made an animal that Mother Nature says you can't assemble that skeleton in that manner and expect them to move effortlessly. It's near impossible. You'll have the anomaly once in a while, but if you study hard, there's usually something allowing that maybe is overcoming such. And if I stepped out of it for quite a while and jumped back in and look real close of where the feet and legs are on hogs and their ability to get from point A to B without pain or stress, effortlessly, I guess is the best way to do it. They simply can't do it at a level, from my perspective, looking from the outside in. For those of you in the trenches every single day, you're appreciating just that mass and that width and that feet, everything that could be put into that animal and how hard it was to make them, to manage them, to fit them, to get them into the ring, all of those things. And it is hard. I'm not saying there's any shortcuts being made to make an animal look like what it does today in the hog ring. But I tell you what, because you're so into it, your bar on what is considered sound enough is much different than mine or maybe somebody else looking in from the outside. And we can use muscle. We can use a lot of different things. I'm just using soundness or skeletal build as one of the examples. And we become habituated. It becomes normal to us that, yeah, this here is sound enough, even though we know if we drive that one for more than 5 or 10 minutes, it's going to fall apart. It's going to go to the corner. It's going to squeal. It's going to do all these things because they aren't built that way. So it's almost species blind. And it's interesting. Ryan is obviously judging all species. I'll go out and judge all species on occasion. And you get a perspective of everything. And it's kind of a unique one. But I promise you, those living it each and every day are going to see what they see, and where that trend is right now. That is where it is. And we're a little blind maybe to the outside. And I want to use cattle and our own goats as an example. But Ryan, please better summarize what I'm trying to get across. I know you can do it.
No, I think when you brought this up to me, I think that you hit it dead on. And we do get so engrossed. And I'm going to say, especially, I think this is more geared towards breeders just a little bit, in my personal opinion.
Because we're making those decisions.
Right. Exactly. And because you are the ones that are making those breeding decisions, making the choices, the genetic choices to see where this takes us, where this leads us, all this other stuff. And right now, more than ever, I think more breeders are also, prominent out there. They're selling their own. They're not selling them as much to brokers and all this other stuff. And that's cool and that's good and everything. But I think this is more tended towards the breeders, because you know exactly how many generations or how many nights you laid awake studying all this and figuring this out and all this other stuff, and how long you've been in this business, and how the amount of time, the amount of intelligence and thought process, and then you add to that the money, and then just the actual labor of those animals coming out. You only want to see the positive. I get it. I'm just telling you, my stepdad is prime example of this. And I understand it. But I think at times you are missing some of the big picture, like you say, because you're so engrossed in this, and you have done so much to make these animals, and they are so good in every species for the most part. I mean, far better than what probably 20 years ago we could even imagine could be here.
I think we're definitely making more unique animals that are harder and harder to make every single year.
Right. And so you don't want to see any negative. And when the trend is the same, like we're talking about, it's not just one hog breeder that those are just adequately sound. It's a lot of them, because the trend is mass and bulk and all this other stuff. And just like you said, you can't do all that and make them effortless in movement. There is an anomaly, all this other stuff. But I think that is a big... I love judging hogs. I love reading structure. I love describing structure, all this other stuff. But that is why hog people either love me or hate me as a judge, because I'm not raising them, but I can tell you with a very unbiased opinion regarding who raised it, who didn't, that one's simply not sound enough. And a lot of people don't like hearing that. They get very angry.
No.
They get very, very angry. But I think this is something that really does affect all things in the industry completely. And you can go into every species like we're going to, but there is a time, and I hope Dale tells the story of the Angus deal that he told me, because that really sums it up. But if you can take a step back and look at it from a different angle, I guess is the best way to put it, I think that not only will you be better served on your own stock, but you will also better serve the stock within your species.
Absolutely. And I think that is the most correct statement we can put out there today, but I think it's near impossible.
I'm not saying it's possible,
because we're so ingrained and entrenched and working so hard at it. This is right. And we just have blockers on that we can't set back and look at the larger picture. But no, you've explained it extremely, extremely well. I'll go ahead and throw myself under the bus on the story that I had told Ryan, or why we jumped into the Angus business here a few years ago. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I decided to go to the Angus Junior Nationals. At one time, I was very passionate about cattle and somewhat in the trenches, in following things much more closely, and then again stepped away from that species. Not that I'm not going to cattle shows or being involved, but just not every day, not down deep in the trenches, especially with specifically the Angus breed. So I go to the Junior Nationals several years ago, and I don't want to offend anybody, and I'm going to try to make this as clear and transparent as I can with hopefully not
Just don't
doing
say
so.
the year.
Okay, yeah, several years ago. So to be clear, when I show up there, I hadn't been to a Junior National. I hadn't been to a big Angus show per se, other than walking through the barn real quick, in a long time. And I'm in the holding arena, and I enjoy looking at the cattle before they go in the ring and getting up close, and then watch them in the ring as well. And it was clear, and it hit me so hard that there was a lot of effort that went into making those cattle, to breeding those cattle, to feeding and managing those cattle, and the fitting and preparation to get in the show ring, immaculate. I mean, at levels that have never happened up until that time before. And that's impressive. And I know how much effort and how much work went into doing that. But because I was coming in out of the trenches, it hit me so hard that if I pull some of that management and fitting away, which I'm all about fitting and go 100%, make it look as good as you can. I'm all in. So I'm not saying don't do that, but let's pull that back. Let's peel some of the fat off of them, and let's decide what are we truly left with. And at that time, I came to the conclusion, this is a train wreck. We have cattle that more likely resemble a bad-legged dairy cow than a beef breed. And I know that's hard. I'm not trying to use shock value or anything, but I truly believe their skeleton was truly that narrow. They were freak necked. They were deep centered because we'd fed them hard enough to expand that rumen. But if you look at their skeletal width and you look for any true muscle shape, not fat, not hair, and you watch them move around the ring, I thought they were in a terrible place. And I guarantee you that if I would have been involved in the Angus breed for a couple of years going into that day, I would have thought those are the best cattle ever, because I'm in that trench every day looking at those cattle, and your blinders become on on what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. This is enough muscle. This is sound enough. But if you step back and look from the outside, maybe we've gone a little too far one way or the other. I'm not a person that is the authority and should say that. I'm just making observations and trying to explain those to you. With that said, it was that day that I decided, wow, there's possibly an opportunity here to go and try to find Angus cattle, and they're here in the U.S. They're around the world that are a little better footed, maybe have a little more to them in terms of just skeletal width and muscular shape and doability. That I'd always heard about the show in Palermo, the Argentina show, that maybe I'll go down there and check those cattle out to see what they were like. And that's what put us into our Angus division, or that was kind of the start of it, because looking in from the outside, I thought there was opportunity. And in my mind, if they've gone a little too far one direction, at some point, even though they're in the trenches every day, they're going to come back around. And I'm going to go off topic here just a second, Ryan, and go back to the hogs. We use soundness as an example right now, and I think that's the best example to use. We could throw age in there probably too, that we're making them so incredibly old to get the feature and some of the things we want, the hair. Those are two things that are happening right now. And most of our listeners are going to be too young to see this, but if we were to go back in the hog arena in time, I can remember the mid-'80s, we had taken hogs so small frame, so fat, so little. When I was in a judging competition in high school, the ones where their bellies or their sheath was honestly almost touching the ground was usually going to win the class. And that was it. That was your priority. The deeper, smaller, fatter, the better. And then all of a sudden we decided, wow, somebody from the outside looking in says, well, the Packers don't want them this fat. Nobody wants hogs this fat. There's nothing really good about it. We called them pliable. We called them maternal. We called them functional. And they were just fat. They weren't any of those other things. And because of that, somehow the trend went the other way. And we go into the 90s, and I'm sure you can find pictures of these. If you haven't, go search champion show hogs of the 90s. Ryan, I'm not going to age you, but you have to be able to remember some of these. They were as tight flanked, flat sided. You could count every rib. I'm talking zero. We starved the hogs, starved them, made them big, straight fronted, straight behind, round topped. We went the total opposite direction of hogs that at that time were so hard doing, so crazy lean, they couldn't even fabricate bacon from their sides. It was a mess. So the example that I'm wanting to get at, there's two extremes right there. And those that were in the trenches, taking it from a breeding perspective, we thought that was we thought these are good hogs. This one that just won, that is a good one. And if we step back, and hindsight's always easier, those things were unbelievably out of the spectrum, the window that we should be in terms of reality. And the hogs are a good example, again, because they change so quickly. So those big, hard, zero muscle, I shouldn't say zero muscle. Some had some muscle, but we starved almost everything out of them. And literally you could count the ribs. And you could, for those younger people out there, if you have not seen those pictures of champions from the 90s, you need to look at them, because you would think this is a joke. But if you lived in that era and you were in the trenches as a breeder or even a show person, you would think these are acceptable. We've habituated. We've accepted this. This is normal. And looking in from the outside, it's crazy. I can remember a local mechanic right here that was his family had showed hogs. And when they got so little and fat, he was making fun of them all the time. I was at Blackhawk judging, and we were trained to use those kind in order to win contests. I thought this local mechanic was crazy, but in all reality, he was right, because he was looking in from the outside a little bit, that what value is there in this little bitty, short, low to the ground, fat hog? It doesn't make sense. He says the trend will change. Well, it not only changed, it went as far the other way as you possibly could. But that's an example of somebody not as attached to it, looking in from the outside, that has just enough perspective or knowledge of that particular industry. Back to the Angus cattle. We go to Argentina, find cattle that I think are the right kind. Not that they aren't here. It was more affordable, and I'd have access to every single donor that I really wanted down there for the most part, because they wanted those genetics to come back to the U.S. They've never had the genetics come back this way. It's always been from the U.S. to other countries, and very seldom anything into the U.S. So they felt very honored to be able to send some back that way. So it opened up more accessibility for me to bring genetics into the country that I truly believe in. And so far, I do believe the Angus trend I think the Angus cattle are way better now than they were then. I think there's a lot of progress being made, and I think the trend is generally going that way. Do I take it a little further in the kind of cattle that I like and believe in? Absolutely. I'm very passionate about functional cattle and good-footed cattle that can actually make it and have some longevity to them. And Ryan will make fun of me because on the goat side, guess what? I'm in the trenches. And what type of goat am I making? The kind that win. And do I put a little more emphasis than most on skeletal build? Yes. Partially because that's what I believe, but also because that is what I think the trend is a year from now, 2 years from now. That's the logical direction for it to go. But I'm in the trenches there, and I'm going to have those blinders on, because that is pretty much our livelihood. And if we do not win, they do not sell. And you can't bite the hand that feeds you, even though you want to stand on a certain principle. For example, if I was breeding cattle, Angus cattle 7-8 years ago, and that was my livelihood, and I was sticking to my principles and the kind I want, I would starve. And it really is that simple. So I don't know, Ryan. There's one more species that we can talk about, but I want you to come in on.
Yeah, well, I just want to bring up a point on the cattle. So I think anybody that's watched me judge any species knows that have a certain type, and they don't have to be the heaviest muscled for me, but they have to be sound and good looking, and then we can add as much muscle onto them as we want. I don't dislike muscle at all. But over the past couple of years, especially in the heifer side, I have found myself saying more and more, for a guy that doesn't have to have them the heaviest muscle, this one's not stout enough, even for me.
That's a pretty big statement from you.
And I'm saying it a lot more often than I ever thought I would, and way more than ever saw previously. And so we have that side, and you talked about the Angus being, when you went to the Junior Nationals 1900 years ago, before you went to Argentina, that you just didn't think if you pulled the hair and the glue and the fat cover or the condition off of them, there would be much to those animals. I think we're seeing that in every breed right now in the heifer side. Now, Dale and I argue all the time about how that there is no real world, there is no commercial side to this. We are literally just raising a zoo creature, all this other stuff. The steer side is the exact opposite. I don't know if we've ever seen them this stout, this heavy. And the reason that steers are winning at 1,450 pounds or more now is because they're just that stout. They're that powerful. So here we go. And granted, a steer is not a breeding animal, but heifer side, they've never been flatter. Steer side, they've never been stouter. Now, what does that tell you, Dale, about this? Because how many times when you were coaching or when you were showing, or I can even go back to when I was very young and showing, you would hear the judge say, well, these steers have sisters that have to be replacements, all this other stuff. That is all a bunch of bullshit now. That does not happen.
No, at this point, we have there, and it's been this way in the steer world of that breeding. There is a division. You have to breed for a show steer, and everybody's aware of this. If you're going to sell, you have to breed for that and that alone. If you want to breed an Angus female or a limousine female or whatever, that's what you're breeding for.
And I can go and I can take that even a step further because the American Royals put in the Steer Mama contest now that just proves that. And I'm not saying that I am a fan of that contest, but I'm just saying.
I just love those Steer Mamas.
they have put that in there that even furthers this point. And this goes back to taking the step back, I guess, this is how I sum this up. If the heifers are so far this way, steers are so far this way, and this is in one species, don't you think that there is a little bit of barn blindness in this here? Because you can't. Why would they be so far off from each other if there wasn't some of that in there? That's the point I wanted to bring up.
I've made the comment to several families, and we're in our southern sales season, so the Texas families that'll come up, and we have a very fortunate to be able to visit with the different families, and some are looking for does and some are looking for wethers. But when they're looking for does, or somebody texts me even about what does do I recommend in a given sale, and the first question I'm going to ask, is it for a hair doe show or a slick doe show? Yep. And I'll tell you what, we're flushing animals, and we don't sex semen in goats for the most part at this point. We can't do it successfully. So we're making we're having flush-born kids of both sexes, in theory 50-50. And those same ones, if you're in it from a business perspective and making your livelihood on it, you need to be able to sell as many of those as possible at a premium to show families. And right now we're trying to make a mating that you can have a national champion show wether, a national champion hair doe, and a national champion slick doe. And guess what? Each and every day, those three, or particularly the hair doe versus slick doe and wether. The slick doe and wether are not going to be that far off, but the hair doe compared to where those are in terms of what's winning and what those look like as babies and how those matings were put together, they're going to continue to drift further and further and further apart, similar to what Ryan's talking about in the cattle world, the steers versus the heifers. So at some point, and it's already here, to be honest with you, when I make a mating decision, or Craig, or our manager is sitting down to make mating decisions, it's almost to the point where, are we making hair does to sell, or are we making slick does and wethers to sell? Because those two worlds continue to spread. And I can tell you exactly the difference. When we're making a hair doe mating, that thing better be extra arrogant. It better have perfect hair. It better be built pretty well. And they're going to feed the mass into it, or fat or whatever, to get them to enough mass. Where we're in the slick weathers or slick shear dosha weather dams, they've got to have some true muscular shape to them. They have to handle much better than what you'd assume a hair doe to be. So it's no different than what we see in other species, but that's hopefully an example that I can relate, that we're going down different paths. And I'm not even saying it's wrong. I just want our listeners to understand these things are happening and kind of acknowledge that this is going on. And I suspect we've already gone very, very terminal on the goats and sacrificed a lot of skeletal build and things like that in the weather show. I think we'll probably go the other extreme on the doe show and try to make them really sound, and maybe kind of like Angus cattle, not have enough muscle, but we feed them fat and we put enough hair on them. They look close enough. And again, that judge is getting a snapshot. And I'll tell you what, a good feeder and a good management program and fit properly, it's pretty hard to beat up on some of those that probably don't have enough, but everything's been done right. So I don't know. It goes a lot of different directions. Ryan, frame sheep, your favorite. Oh, wait a minute. You make the frame sheep people angry, don't you?
Yeah, always.
I don't know why. I want to use that as a very quick example. I promise to be brief here, but if I think of the breeding sheep, frame sheep, people refer to your Suffolks, your Hampshires.
It's the exact same as cattle.
Yes, maybe to even more of extreme, because I've seen this a similar trend for almost 40 years. And maybe the past 5 years kind of tapered off a little bit. But I'm going to say from 1980 until I'm going to go almost to 2020. That'd be 40 years, I guess, is all. That's still a lot. That they not single trait selected. Let's use Suffolk sheep as an example. And we went through the spider age and promoted it for various reasons, because we were making sheep taller. So they in that arena, they would select almost strictly off of hip height or frame size, whatever you want. And maybe nobody will admit to it, but for the most part, that was your number one priority. And we made sheep bigger and bigger and bigger. We all of a sudden inserted Columbia into almost every breed, or Suffolk into all the blackface breeds, to make them bigger and bigger and bigger, to the point where they're so big and very frail and no body, yet we could leave wool on them and cut those things out. And I call it an art. And it's amazing how they could cut those out to make them look like they have some body shape and some muscle to them. But we peel that wool off, and it's a hard-doing beast that has no muscle. But that has continued, and I'm afraid it's a dying art. Raising frame sheep, fitting frame sheep, all those things, the numbers, in my opinion, on some of the breeds has really fallen off. And it's sad, because I think it is part of our show ring culture and history, and I respect what those people have done and how good they were at cutting out and fitting some of those individuals. But it's interesting to me, and I visited with a good friend, Rick Clampy, this morning. He's a Dorset breeder, and he confirmed that it was probably from the 80s until here recently that we just continued to make them bigger and bigger. And those that are in those trenches, that is the kind they like. I promise you, when you look in from the outside, which I've never been in those trenches, it's always baffled me that narrow of an animal, that hard doing of an animal, that hard bodied of an animal is winning a national show. Yet, if I was in those trenches, I would love them. Absolutely love them.
Right. I think that sums the whole thing up really well. And I think the reason that I thought in the whole barn blind nonsense of it all and the topic, that I thought this was probably the more important or impactful side, is because, just like I stated earlier, I think that if we have the ability to kind of look outside of not just our breeding program, but our species that we're raising in general, I think that you will only and see it for what it truly is, that we're talking about heifers being flatter than ever, steers being more muscular than ever, all the things that we've discussed. I think that if you can see that and recognize it, not only are you going to be a better stockman in general, But I think you are going to improve the animals that you are breeding, and you are also going to improve the species that you are breeding as well. Now, I don't know if it's possible, but if we had that ability to be able to kind of step outside of ourselves for a little bit and really read the animals that we're raising and the animals we're competing against, and that all of that, honestly and accurately, I think we do nothing but improve even more. And I'm not saying that they're bad, because they're as good as they've ever been.
And they're harder to make and we're putting more effort than ever behind
Right.
it, period.
Yeah.
And I want to.
I'm not trying to discount anybody. I'm just saying this is where we're at.
But that perfectly summarizes, Ryan. And I can think of so many people that are good livestock people that maybe have been out of the livestock show ring business or breeding or whatever it may be, that step in with that open mind. And some of them become insanely successful fairly quickly because of that direction and that open mind that they're taking, that they don't have the blinders on that those that are in the trenches every day for years and years have. And it actually works sometimes. There's one more parallel I was going to bring out, Ryan, and I forgot.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about the gay bar. When you go into a gay bar, it's pretty normal, isn't it? Not normal. There's things that are unusual.
What would happen? Not normal at all.
You habituate to some of the things that you may or may not see in a gay bar. What would happen if I were to walk in there? Would I go into shock?
Yes, I go into shock every time. You would have a heart attack.
Yeah. But if I was attending them all the time, it wouldn't be quite as dramatic for me.
No, I don't have a heart attack every time. I mean, I have very few heart attacks when I go into them, but I get your point. But yes, but do not think that is normal. There's nothing normal about it. It is entertaining.
Yes, I believe
highly
there is
entertaining.
Yeah, I don't even know if I could get past the shock to get to the entertainment level.
Well, I'm just telling you, this is why everybody loves my Snapchat when I go to the bar, because it is highly.
Oh my! Is it time for question and answer? Thank you, Ryan, for. I think you did a much better job of summarizing. I get a little too attached to some of these things and theories and things I lay awake at night thinking about. And it's hard when I become that emotionally involved and so, I guess, ingrained into those things. I have a hard time explaining it. So I appreciate the help with that. And hopefully every time we think we have a good discussion, the listener volume is down. And when we think it's a simple discussion that nobody will like, outrageous number of listeners. So we'll see how it all works out. But it's time for question and answer.
For over 60 years, Leonard Truck and Trailer has been the most trusted trailer expert for hauling your champions to victory. For journeys that go beyond the ring, Leonard Truck and Trailer offers the largest selection of every type of trailer by 40 manufacturers, including low-pro stock show trailers and living quarter stock trailers as well. Their trailers are designed for excellence and comfort, so you arrive in style while ready to compete. Haul with confidence wherever the road takes you because they have a nationwide concierge service and warranty administration. Leonard Truck and Trailers offers industry-leading financing, nationwide delivery, trade-ins are welcome, plus they can create and install custom vinyl graphics for your trailer, and they have a full line of apparel and hats to promote your farm and ranch. Please visit Leonard Truck and Trailer at leonardtrailers.com and tell them you heard about them on the Beyond the Ring podcast. Thank you, Leonard Truck and Trailers. I cannot talk for some reason today. Thank you, Leonard Truck and Trailers, Clint and Tiffany Leonard, for all your support. They are the question and answer sponsor.
Did you injure your ribs or fracture your ribs or something?
No, I didn't. I just don't know why I can't talk that loud. A little bit. I couldn't talk. I couldn't say Leonard. I'm sorry, Clint.
Okay, Clint, thank you very much for that support of the BTR JLA. It is appreciated. Now, this one's addressed Ryan and Dale, but I'm 90% sure this is meant for Ryan.
Right.
I recently was at a sheep jackpot in Iowa. Ryan was judging and heard him talk about a ewe that had the best handle to hit the gate so far tonight. It got me to wonder, what does a good handle feel like on a sheep or a goat? Also, we see many exhibitors spraying lambs with all sorts of sprays, oils, lotions, secret sauces. I've seen everything from lambs that look very dry to almost soaking wet as they enter the ring. What is the ideal when you handle a sheep for the amount of product that should be used? Thank you for the podcast. It makes great listening with my daughter on our way to shows each weekend. So it's a several part question, Ryan. Have at it.
Right. Well, the first thing I want to address is I can address what I think is ideal handle, but what I think is ideal handle is probably going to be different, at least in some degree. I think probably in a lot of degree to other people. The last part of his question, I will address I hate wet sheep. I hate wet goats. I don't know why y'all do that. I really don't. I don't understand it.
Because some other judge may have complimented them on the handle when they were wet. That is why.
I don't get it. I don't understand it. I mean, I don't even like damp ones. Okay? Don't. Just make sure your animal's dry.
Okay? Those of you showing at the Illinois State Fair Weather Dam show.
Yeah, don't bring nothing in there wet. It ain't gonna work out.
I'm just trying to give you heads up here, trying to help out a little bit.
It's not gonna work out worth a damn. I'm just gonna tell you. But I have asked lots of people that do very well in sheep shows all across the nation. Why do they do this? And nobody can give me an answer. So I don't get it. But on the wet, the damp, yeah. As far as handle for me, I say this a lot, especially when I'm in the Midwest or Yankee territory. I am from Texas. We like lean, mean fighting machines. We like them rock hard, etc. So I don't know how many times I have said too soft, too soft, too soft, too soft, too soft. So I like them extremely firm in their tone and their texture. I mean, like rock hard. That's what I like. I know that is probably not. I think firmness is a general concept that everybody likes. I probably take it to the extreme is the best way to sum that up. But also, I think there is because I am very critical on freshness in all things, especially handle and look, that's got to be there too. So getting that line, I think we had an episode just recently about where the 95% get beat by the 5%. Getting that line to where they are hard as they can possibly be, but not handling stale, that's where I want you to be.
I have a suggestion for some of our sheep showmen out there. Mm-hmm. A lot of what Ryan is talking about, and again, this is if you're showing to Ryan or even myself, because I happen to agree completely with him. There's no question that other judges are okay with them being softer in their handle from the simple standpoint that very few showmen that enter the sheep ring actually get a hard brace like I would prefer them to have, just like you're flexing your muscle. When you flex your muscle, that your biceps popping up there, it's hard. It's just like a bodybuilder. When you don't, it's kind of mellowed out. And it seems like that mellowed out is okay because we pretend like we're bracing the sheep, yet we're really not. And I promise you, if you're doing the splits and yet that sheep's truly bracing, what's going to happen, Ryan?
It's going to, if the sheep is truly bracing, what now?
That's going to push those poor people right over that are doing the splits.
No, well, that maybe, but yeah, I see what you're saying. But you're getting on a different question, different. Here's the thing, people. I think that maybe what Dale's getting at is that y'all are preparing these animals to be handled to the fact where you think that the kids are going to get embraced appropriately and then they don't, and then they're soft. Is that what you were trying to get?
Yes. A lot of them aren't even, there's little bracing going on in the lamb ring. Very little. No, I'm not saying over brace or anything like that, but just it's to your advantage to give me a little.
And then the other thing on that, and this is not in this man's question, but I hate to tell you whether you're doing the splits or any other technique on brace, I can walk up to your sheep before I ever put my hands on it and tell you if it's bracing or not. I can. And if you can, then no one is going to like to hear that at all. But I'm telling you, I can.
Before you touch them.
Yeah. So
and you already have a little bit of a negative impression before you touch them a lot of the time.
Well, I mean,
because they're not.
Don't lie to these people. You can tell.
Yes, and it's not good. But apparently you and I may be in the minority here. So take that for what it is. Absolutely for what it is. No, I think that's good. It is. And hopefully, I don't know how much secret sauce and how much spray or what to put to tell you what to put on the tops. Some judges are going to be okay if they come in wet or damp. Ryan's not okay. I'm pretty neutral, but probably prefer they are not
okay with it. I am.
Yeah. So that's gonna fluctuate just a little bit. But excellent question, excellent answer on Ryan's part. Question 2. And I do not have the names of the people that submitted these. Ryan actually was kind enough to screenshot these off our Facebook page because I am in jail. Mm-hmm. Thank you for all you do. Have really enjoyed the last 2 episodes. I have a showmanship question. Not to date myself too much, but it seems these days sheep are being shown with their noses straight up and braced against the exhibitor's whole body. To me, this looks not only unnatural and uncomfortable for the sheep, I was also told that the noses needed to stay level for them to brace properly. I guess if they are driving, it doesn't matter, but wondered if this was just a trend.
But they're not driving. we just talked about that.
Yes.
Okay. And I don't know who brought this up, but like anybody that has watched me judge a sheep show in the past 2 years, when I'm in showmanship, the thing that I do more than anything else is I take the nose of their sheep and I push it down when I'm talking to them. I'm like, level the nose, level the nose, level the nose. Because it is just what this person's saying. They have the nose stuck up in the air. The sheep can see the roof and all this other stuff. And it is not, number one, I don't care if it's comfortable for the sheep. PETA, come at me. But the sheep is not going to brace. And number 2, it is breaking the silhouette of that sheep. Because when you push that nose that far back, what happens, Dale, right there at the top of the shoulders?
Oh, it changes. If you just stop people and get back off a sheep, have somebody or a goat point the nose all the way to the sky and then bring it back level. Watch the dynamic change in that shoulder and that silhouette. It's huge. I can't even explain it. And for some reason, that's that 5% thing. The masses seem to, a lot of people.
And this is like the bouncing or whatever. Yeah. I don't know who started the bouncing trend. I don't care who started the bouncing trend. I don't care who started this trend. It needs to stop.
And there are definitely in the goats and in the sheep. There are some goats that I talk about. They won't give you their neck. And sometimes they want to throw that chin up, and it's hard to bring that chin down and get them to push their neck back. Some just don't do it because of the way they're constructed. It doesn't work very well. But if you can push that head and neck back into that lamb and twist that nose down to level, that whole dynamic of how that shoulder is assembled and how it looks and that silhouette that Ryan's talking about, it is huge. Go through our Facebook page, or if you ever get a chance to see one of our online sales, our manager, Craig, is about the best there is at taking a crazy little goat. And he's got such big hands and strong enough, he can manipulate that head and neck that we make sure that every one of them, that neck is pushed back and that chin's brought down to close to level. Now, are there times they just won't do it? They just refuse that they won't give you that neck and you can't. But if you can, I promise you exactly what Ryan's talking about, that will draw you in if you get it right. And that will draw a judge in or a buyer in if you get it right.
Correct.
Final question. And this is goat related. I only saw a few pictures of division and overall champions from the Boar Goat show in Louisville this past week. But what I noticed is that they all showed with some variation of a chain. Are there any goat exhibitors in the purebred / full-blood / percentage show world that use halters, or is this just a market goat trend?
Since I don't judge those shows, I don't know. That's you, Dale.
I do not judge full-blood shows.
You just judged one in Florida.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not certified to judge one. How's that?
No, I'm not either. I'm not getting that way either.
So I do not, by memory, I do not remember a full blood or percentage animal being shown on a halter. I'm sure there's a few that have, especially maybe with younger children. They do show with chains, and I am obviously a proponent of showing with whatever the goat and that child is going to do the best with. Some goats look better on chains. Some goats look better on a halter. Some individuals show better with a chain. Some individuals are more adapted to showing the halter. So I'm in favor of showing with whatever works. It's hard for me to envision, and I've seen showmen do it. I think it takes a very elite showman with a very well broke animal, goat that is, to be able to get them to move around the ring effortlessly with a chain on. And I've seen them drag them with halters as well. When we drag them with a chain, they usually choke out and go down on their front knees, and PETA comes in. It's just a mess. If on the same situation, if you have that goat that is cocky and arrogant, and you can put a halter on and almost let that goat lead you into the ring, that's pretty darn impressive. And at least I'm a sucker for it. When they throw their own head up and they're just floating on their own, kind of a show pony trot, I'm all in. So I don't see a lot of full bloods or percentage people doing it. Most of those full bloods and percentages get shown for years, and they're so dead broke that I think it works no matter probably what you put on them. And sometimes we'll put a halter on an animal that just doesn't respond to a chain, fights it more. So I don't think you see it as much. And there's something called tradition. And I can promise you that I have received as much hate mail about putting a halter on a goat and developing some of the first goat halters out there for some of the show companies, that there are people that don't like tradition to be changed.
Yeah, no, I think what Dale said, do what works best for your showman and your animal. That should be in all species. And I think that
even if they work better with a cable halter?
No, I don't know about that. But I maybe draw the line there. But I think that also the point that in every industry, but ours more than any other that I know, this thing of it worked 500 years ago or 50 years ago or 15 years ago, so it's going to work now.
Or even 2 years ago.
People do not like change in this industry. They do not. They just don't. No, I mean, change the animals, but all the other stuff, no, they don't. They don't like it. They do not.
And I like history. I like tradition. Absolutely. I mean, I feel bad for the frame sheep, some of the breeds that's falling off. And I don't think we have a younger generation, a large number of them that can cut out a sheep and present one like they used to. Even though I'm not a fan of great big, looking in from the outside, the purpose of the great big frame sheep, but I appreciate the art. And there's some things in here that yeah, I wish we could keep some around. I think tradition's good to follow to a certain degree, but when we're talking about competing in the ring right now, common sense, logic tells me that use whatever's going to make that animal look the best. I don't care if it's a cane, a pipe for a pig, a whip for a pig, a chain for a goat versus, I don't care what it is. Whatever that animal responds to the best, that's going to allow that animal to look its best, seems very simple for me.
Aw.
Well, Ryan, this was long, very long. I have a lot of things to do today, and you drew this out.
Right. It's always.
Where will you be tomorrow night during the debate?
I will still be at the main on Kenya Junior Nationals, but I'll be watching.
You'll be at the hotel by, I don't even know what time it is.
Yeah, I'll be at the hotel by then.
Well, I'm almost to the point where if my child is going into the ring with a good one at a big show, I get so sick to my stomach, nervous, that I don't even want to watch. Guess what feeling I have about this debate?
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's going to be a mess. You're going to maybe have to walk me through it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan. Until next week, be safe.
Y'all come back now, you hear?